Okay, so I will be taking an important class today, that is micturition. Okay, it is an important physiological process. So let's start with the PPT. So today's learning objectives. At first, we will learn the physiological anatomy of urinary bladder, then the innervation of bladder, then the physiology of micturition, then the micturition reflex, then we will have a short discussion on cystometry, then finally, I will tell you the abnormalities of micturition. So micturition, as you know, it is the process by which the urinary bladder empties when it becomes filled. This process involves two main steps. First, the bladder fills progressively until the tension in its wall rises above a threshold level. This tension elicits the second step, which is a nervous reflex called the micturition reflex that empties the bladder, or if this fails, at least causes a conscious desire to urinate. So you can see the micturition. The first step is the filling up of the bladder. Okay, and the second step is the micturition reflex. It is a nervous reflex, and due to this reflex only, the bladder can empty itself. Or if there is no proper environment where we can micturate, then at least it will cause a conscious desire to urinate. Although the micturition reflex is an autonomic spinal cord reflex, because okay, although the micturition reflex is an autonomic spinal cord reflex, it can be inhibited or facilitated by centers in the cerebral cortex or brainstem. So what does it mean? So see, micturition reflex is an autonomic spinal cord reflex, but it can be inhibited or facilitated. That is, if the environment is such that we are not in a condition to micturate, then we can inhibit the micturition reflex. And if there is proper environment where we can urinate or micturate, then it is facilitated. So this inhibition or facilitation is done by centers in the cerebral cortex or brainstem. Now let's see the physiologic anatomy of the bladder. The two ureters bring urine from the two kidneys, which is collected in the urinary bladder. The wall of the urinary bladder is composed of smooth muscle called detrusor muscle. Okay, so the smooth muscle of the urinary bladder is known as detrusor muscle. I suppose, I suppose your anatomy part is not done, isn't it? The urinary bladder. So there you will be told that the smooth muscle of the urinary bladder is the detrusor muscle. It is internally lined by urothelium, a transitional epithelium which is impervious. Okay. The urinary bladder is composed of two main parts, the body and the neck. So this is the female urinary bladder, this is the male. So basically urinary bladder is the same, but the urethra part is little bit different. Okay. So the urethra in the male, it is longer than the female. So these are the two ureters opening into the urinary bladder, and this part, this triangular part, this is known as the trigone. Okay, this is known as the trigone. The neck of the urinary bladder connects with the urethra. Hence, the lower part of the bladder neck is also called the posterior urethra. So many a times you will hear this word posterior urethra. So what is posterior urethra? It is the lower part of the bladder neck. Okay, lower part of the bladder neck is known as the posterior urethra. Then on the posterior wall of the bladder is a small triangular area called the trigone. I have shown you the trigone. The two ureters enter the bladder at the uppermost angles of the trigone, and the bladder neck opens into the posterior urethra at the lowermost apex of the trigone. The bladder neck or the posterior urethra is 2 to 3 centimeter long and its wall is composed of detrusor muscle interlaced with a large amount of elastic tissue. The circular smooth muscle fibers in the area of the neck of bladder are thickened to form the internal sphincter. So this is the important term, internal sphincter or sphincter vesicae. So what is internal sphincter? It is the circular smooth muscle fibers which lie in the area of the neck of the bladder. Okay, so internal sphincter, it is made up of circular smooth muscles in the area of the neck of bladder. You remember this term, internal sphincter. Then the natural tone of the internal sphincter prevents emptying of the bladder until the pressure in the body of bladder rises above a threshold level. So you see, there is a natural tone of the internal sphincter due to which it prevents emptying of the bladder. When it will relax, then only the urine can come out. Okay. So when it will open until the bladder, the pressure inside the bladder rises above the threshold level. Beyond the posterior urethra, the urethra passes through the urogenital diaphragm, which contains a layer of muscle called the external sphincter of the bladder. So another sphincter is the external sphincter. Okay, so this external sphincter, this is a skeletal muscle and is under voluntary control of the nervous system and can be used to consciously prevent urination even when involuntary controls are attempting to empty the bladder. You see, external sphincter and internal sphincter. The internal sphincter, it is under involuntary control. We cannot control the internal sphincter. Okay, but this external sphincter we can control. It is under voluntary control. Let me show you the diagram. So here you can see it is just a schematic diagram. This is the external sphincter. Okay, and internal sphincter will be inside the urinary bladder. So here there will be the external sphincter. Okay, here you will be getting the external sphincter, and inside you will be getting the this is the internal sphincter. You can see here, this is the internal sphincter, and here at this side you will be getting the external sphincter. Okay, internal sphincter, it is under involuntary control, and this external sphincter, it is under voluntary control. Okay. Now coming to the innervation of the bladder. This is also very important part. Okay, the bladder and the internal sphincter are supplied by the autonomic nerves. Okay, so since they are under involuntary control, or we cannot control, so the bladder and the internal sphincter, they are supplied by the autonomic nerves. Okay, that is the parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves, and the external sphincter is supplied by somatic nerves or pudendal nerves. The external sphincter is under our voluntary control. Okay, so this external sphincter, remember, this external sphincter is supplied by the somatic nerves. Which nerve? Pudendal nerves. Okay, pudendal nerves supply the external sphincter, and it is under our control, voluntary control. But the bladder, that is detrusor muscle, and the internal sphincter, they are supplied by the autonomic nerves, that is the parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. The parasympathetic supply comes via pelvic nerves. Remember, pelvic nerves. Okay, and these nerves are important for micturition. Sympathetic supply comes from T11 to L2 segments of spinal cord. Okay. So these pelvic nerves, there is a parasympathetic supply. It comes from which segment of the spinal cord? From S, sacral segment 2, 3, 4. Okay, sacral segment. And this sympathetic supply, it comes from thoracic 11 to lumbar 12, lumbar 2 segment of spinal cord through the hypogastric nerves. But the sympathetic supply is not that important. Main autonomic nerves which has got role in micturition is the parasympathetic supply. Remember, parasympathetic supply. Okay, and this parasympathetic supply comes via pelvic nerves. Okay, and it comes from which segment? S, sacral segment 2, 3, 4. and the external sphincter is supplied by somatic nerves, that is the pudendal nerves. So these three things you should remember. Okay. So you see, this is the urinary bladder. So this is the spinal cord segment 2, 3, 4. Okay. From spinal cord segment 2, 3, 4, this parasympathetic supply, there is a pelvic nerves. They come, and from this same segment also these pudendal nerves come. Pudendal nerves and the pelvic nerves both come from segment S234. Okay. So this parasympathetic supply, they are supplying this detrusor muscle, and the here you will be getting the internal sphincter. Okay, this internal sphincter and the detrusor muscle, they are supplied by the parasympathetics via the pelvic nerves. And this external sphincter, it is supplied by the pudendal nerves, and this is under voluntary control, and these two are involuntary control. We don't have any control over these two. Okay, so this is the parasympathetic supply, this is the somatic nerve supply through pudendal nerve, parasympathetic through pelvic nerve, and L2 thoracic, and from lumbar segment you are getting the sympathetic supply. Okay, sympathetic supply. So this sympathetic supply has got no major role in micturition. Okay, so innervation of the urinary bladder. So parasympathetic supply comes via pelvic nerves, I told you, from S234 segment of the spinal cord. Now this pelvic nerves, they have got the sensory fibers and the motor fibers. Okay, the sensory fibers transmitted through pelvic nerve detect the degree of stretch. So whenever the urinary bladder will be filled with urine, the urinary bladder wall will stretch, and this stretching, this will be transmitted through the sensory fibers. Okay, stretch signals are responsible for initiating the reflexes that cause bladder emptying. These sensory fibers also carry pain sensation. So this is regarding the sensory fibers. Then the motor fibers, the motor nerves transmitted in the pelvic nerves terminate on ganglion cells located in the wall of the bladder. Short postganglionic nerves then innervate the detrusor muscle. Okay. These nerves are responsible for contraction of the detrusor and relaxation of the internal sphincter. I told you. So these pelvic nerves, motor nerves, are responsible for contraction of the detrusor, and when these nerves will be stimulated, what will happen? The internal sphincter will relax. Okay. Hence the parasympathetic is called the nerve avoiding. Okay, so parasympathetic is called the nerve avoiding. So when there will be parasympathetic stimulation, the urine will flow out. There will be voiding of urine. The sympathetic nerves to the bladder play no part in micturition. Okay, but what is their role? In males only, they do mediate the contraction of the bladder muscle that prevents semen from entering the bladder during ejaculation. Okay, so during ejaculation, it will prevent the retrograde entry of semen, okay, into the bladder. So there only the sympathetic nerves has got a role. Then the external sphincter is supplied by pudendal nerves. It is also coming from the segment 2, 3, 4 and is under voluntary control. Okay. Then come to the centers of control of bladder function. Lower center, it is in the S234 spinal cord segments. Okay. So spinal cord segment, sacral segment 2, 3, 4. This is the main segment, or this is the main center which controls the bladder function, but this center is under the influence of higher centers. Okay, so this is the lower center do not have got full autonomy. They are under the control of the higher centers. So what are the higher centers? These are the facilitatory centers at the pontine region, pons, and posterior hypothalamus. There is an inhibitory center in the midbrain. Okay, these brainstem centers are under the influence of the cortical centers situated in the frontal lobe in the motor area. So there are centers in the pons and the midbrain. Okay, and these again are controlled by the cerebral cortex, mainly the frontal lobe in the motor area. Okay, so these are the higher centers which control the bladder function. Coming to the physiology of micturition, the main physiological events in the process of micturition are filling of urinary bladder and emptying of urinary bladder. Okay, so filling of urinary bladder, as urine collects in the renal pelvis, the pressure in the pelvis increases and initiates a peristaltic contraction beginning in the pelvis and spreading along the ureter to force urine towards the bladder. So this way the urine comes from the ureter into the bladder. The ureters enter the bladder through the detrusor muscle in the trigone region. I have shown you the trigone region. It's a triangular region. Okay. The normal tone of the detrusor muscle in the bladder wall tends to compress the ureters, thereby preventing backflow of urine. So this way the backflow of urine is prevented due to the normal tone of the detrusor muscle. When there is no urine in the bladder, the intravesical pressure is about 0. But by the time 30 to 50 ml of urine have collected, the pressure rises to 5 to 10 centimeters of water. You see, when there is around 30 to 50 ml of urine in the urinary bladder, the intravesical, that is the pressure inside the urinary bladder, the pressure rises to 5 to 10 centimeters of water. After that, additional urine of 200 to 300 ml can collect with only a small additional rise in pressure. Okay, so up to up to 50 ml of urine, what is the intravesical pressure? It is around 5 to 10 centimeters of water. Okay, but after that, additional amount of 200 to 300 ml if urine collects inside the bladder, still there will be only a very marginal rise of intravesical pressure. Okay, there will not be much increase in pressure. It will be around 10 to 15 centimeter. It will be around 10 to 12 centimeter of water only. So this constant level of pressure is caused by intrinsic tone of the bladder wall. Okay, so the bladder wall has got that capacity that with up to 300 ml of urine, the pressure will not rise much. Okay, it will be around 10 centimeter of water only. Okay, but after that, what happens? Beyond 300 to 400 ml, collection of more urine in the bladder causes the pressure to rise rapidly. After that, that is beyond 300 to 400 ml collection of urine, if there is more urine in the bladder, what will happen? The intravesical pressure will rise rapidly. Okay, as the bladder fills, many superimposed micturition contractions begin to appear. Okay, so whenever the urine volume is more than around 300 to 400 ml, what happens? Some micturition contractions appear. You remember the term micturition contractions. Okay, some micturition contraction begins to appear. They are the result of a stretch reflex initiated by sensory stretch receptors in the bladder wall when the bladder begins to fill with urine at the higher bladder pressure. That is due to the micturition reflex only, this micturition contractions begin to appear. When this micturition contractions will appear, they will start appearing when the intravesical pressure will rise more than 300 to 400 ml. Okay, then only this micturition contractions will start to appear. This study, that is the study of the relationship between the intravesical volume and pressure, is known as cystometry. You have to know this term cystometry. What is cystometry? This study of the relationship between the intravesical volume and the pressure. That is the relationship that is between the pressure, that is the volume inside the urinary bladder, that is the urine volume inside the urinary bladder and the pressure inside the urinary bladder. The relationship, this study of this relationship is known as cystometry. Okay, and the graphical record of this relationship is known as cystometrogram. So remember this term, cystometrogram. What is cystometrogram? It is the graph. It is the graphical record of this relationship. Okay, that is the relationship between the intravesical volume and the intravesical pressure. Okay, that is known as the cystometrogram. I will show you the cystometrogram. So this is the normal cystometrogram. So you see, this is the volume. There is the urine volume in milliliters, and this side, on the Y side, we have the intravesical pressure. That is the pressure inside the urinary bladder. It is in centimeter per water. Okay, centimeter per water. So when the urine volume is 0, the pressure is also 0. So it is rising. It is rising. The pressure, the volume is rising. See, with around 50 to 30 ml 50 to 30 ml, the pressure rises to around 5. Okay, so it is increasing. So see, up to 300 or up to 400, in between this there is only a marginal rise from 0 to 10. Okay, it is rising. Okay, and this part is constant. There is no increase in the pressure, intravesical pressure. Okay, the volume is increasing from 100 to 200 to 300. Okay, but still there is no steep increase. But when the volume increases more than 400, see, there is a very steep increase of the intravesical pressure. Okay, so whenever the volume increases to from more than 300 to 400, what happen? Some micturition contractions start appearing. So these are known as the micturition contractions. Okay, this is the basal cystometrogram, that is up to 300 ml of urine. It is the basal cystometrogram. After that, what happens when the volume increases from around 300 to 400 ml, then this micturition contractions start appearing. Okay, due to this micturition reflex, that is there is contraction of the detrusor muscle. Okay, I'll tell you about the micturition reflex and how the micturition contraction occur. So this is the normal cystometrogram. This is an important diagram. Okay, you should know this. This is from Guyton. Now coming to the emptying of the bladder. So micturition is the process by which urinary bladder empties when it becomes filled. Emptying of the bladder occurs due to micturition reflex, which is a spinal reflex but is controlled by supraspinal centers. Supraspinal, that is above the spinal cord. That is the brain stem, midbrain, pons. Okay, and the cerebral cortex. All comes under the supraspinal centers. And this is again assisted by contraction of perineal and abdominal muscles. Okay. So this perineal and abdominal muscle contraction, they have got an additional effect. Okay. So coming to the micturition reflex, this is a very important topic, micturition reflex. Usually you may get a short note regarding this micturition reflex. Okay, you should know it very nicely. So micturition reflex, it is a reflex by which urinary bladder empties when it is filled. So see, micturition reflex is a spinal cord, that is it is a spinal reflex. Okay, so for every reflex, what happens, there is a center and there is afferent limb, there is efferent limb. Okay, afferent limb means the nerve which the nerve supply which carries the sensation from the periphery to the center, and from the center the information is again carried through the motor nerves. Okay, through the afferent pathway. So that comprises a spinal reflex. Okay, so micturition reflex, let's see what is the initiating factor. Micturition reflex is initiated by stimulation of the stretch receptors located in the wall of urinary bladder. So I have told you, in the urinary bladder you have got the detrusor muscle. So whenever there is filling of the urinary bladder, gradually there is stretching of the wall of the urinary bladder. Okay, and due to the stretching of the urinary bladder wall, what happens, there is initiation of the reflex by the stretch receptors, okay, which are located in the wall of the urinary bladder. Then stimulus, filling of bladder by 300 to 400 ml of urine in adults constitutes the adequate stimulus for micturition reflex to occur. Though under natural circumstances, the first urge to empty the bladder occurs at approximately 150 ml of urinary volume, but it can be easily suppressed. So whenever the urinary bladder is filled with around 150 ml of urinary volume, then we may feel a urge to urine, but that can be easily suppressed. But when the urinary volume is more than 300 to 400 ml of urine, then what happens? Strong micturition contractions begins to appear, and we feel that we have to micturate. Okay. Then what are the afferents? Micturition reflex is a spinal reflex. The afferents from the stretch receptors in the detrusor muscle and urethra travel along the pelvic splanchnic nerve, that is the pelvic nerves, and enter the spinal cord. The afferents are carried by the pelvic nerves. I told you only it enters the spinal cord through dorsal roots to which segment? As sacral segment 2, 3, 4 to reach the sacral micturition center. So here the center is the sacral micturition center. So sacral micturition center, it is in the sacral segments of the spinal cord and is formed by the sacral detrusor nucleus and sacral pudendal nucleus. So these two nucleus are there in the sacral spinal cord, and these two nucleus comprises the sacral micturition center. Coming to the efferents, that is the nerves which will be carrying the impulses from the spinal cord to the urinary bladder. Okay. So efferents arising from the sacral detrusor nucleus are the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers which relay in the ganglia near or within bladder and urethra. The postganglionic parasympathetic fibers are excitatory to the detrusor muscle. Remember, these parasympathetic fibers are excitatory to the detrusor muscle and inhibitory to the internal sphincter. Okay, they are inhibitory to the internal sphincter. Now let's see the response. Sensory signals from the bladder stretch receptors are conducted to the sacral segments of the cord through the pelvic nerves and then reflexly back again to the bladder through the parasympathetic nerve fibers by way of these same nerves. So here you can see the diagram. This is the urinary bladder. Okay. So whenever this bladder wall will be stretched by urine volume, okay, what will happen? These stretch receptors will be initiated, and this stretch reflex, okay, so this information will be carried through these pelvic nerves to this to the spinal cord, okay, to the sacral detrusor nucleus, to the sacral micturition center, okay, and from this sacral micturition center again this is the afferent. This is the afferent limb. This is carrying the information from the urinary bladder wall to the sacral micturition center. Okay. And again from here, sacral micturition center, the efferent fibers will be coming to the detrusor muscle. Okay. This is the motor fiber. This is sensory fiber. These are motor fibers. And these motor fibers, what will happen? They will, due to this stimulation, this detrusor muscle will be contracted. The detrusor muscle will be contracted, and you can see another, it is showing here the internal sphincter. The internal sphincter will be relaxed. Okay, the internal sphincter will be relaxed, and when the internal sphincter will be relaxed, then what will happen? The urine will be voided. Okay, so this is the afferent limb, this is the micturition center, and this is the afferent limb. This is the afferent limb. Okay. And you can see this sacral micturition center, it is controlled by higher centers. There is a pontine micturition center, basal ganglia, limbic system, and the motor cortex. Okay. These are the supraspinal control. This is the spinal cord, and these are the supraspinal control. And the spinal sacral micturition center, I told you, sacral detrusor nucleus and the sacral pudendal nucleus. Okay. Coming to the response, so when the bladder is only partially filled, the micturition contractions relax spontaneously after a fraction of a minute, and pressure falls back to the baseline. So whenever the urinary bladder is only partially filled, what will happen? The micturition contractions, they will relax spontaneously, okay, after a fraction of a minute, and pressure falls back to the baseline. As the bladder continues to fill, the micturition reflexes become more frequent and cause greater contraction of the detrusor muscle. Okay, so whenever the volume will be more than around 300 to 400 ml, what will happen? There will be more and more amount of micturition reflexes, and this reflexes, the micturition contractions will be more powerful also. Okay, so once a micturition reflex begins, it is a self-regenerative. That is, initial contraction of the bladder activates the stretch receptors to cause a greater increase in sensory impulses, which causes a further increase in reflex contraction of the bladder. So it is a type of positive feedback mechanism. Okay. So once this reflex starts, there will be more and more contractions. Okay. This cycle is repeated again and again until the bladder has reached a strong degree of contraction. Then after a few seconds, the self-regenerative reflex begins to fatigue and the regenerative cycle of the micturition reflex ceases, permitting the bladder to relax. So see, the micturition contractions are increasing more and more. But if there is no proper environment where we can micturate, then what will happen? Gradually, this micturition contractions, they will decrease. Okay, they will fatigue, and this micturition reflex will cease temporarily. Okay, permitting the bladder to relax. Okay, so once the micturition reflex has not succeeded in emptying the bladder, the nervous elements of this reflex usually remain in an inhibited state for some time before another micturition reflex occurs. So many a times we feel a urge to urine, but we are not able to micturate at that time. So what will happen? So there will be inhibition of this micturition reflex. Okay, temporarily. As the bladder becomes more filled, micturition reflexes occur more often and more powerful. Once the reflex becomes powerful enough, it causes another reflex which passes through the pudendal nerves to the external sphincter to inhibit it. So you see, here you can see another nerve supply. It is to the pudendal nerves. Okay, so these pudendal nerves, what will happen? They will supply the external urethral sphincter. Okay, and when there is proper we can proper environment to urinate, what will happen? This will, the external urethral sphincter will relax. Okay, so as the bladder becomes more filled, micturition reflexes occur more often and more powerful. Once the reflex becomes powerful enough, it causes another reflex which passes through the pudendal nerves to external sphincter to inhibit it. Okay, to inhibit it, and it will relax. Okay. If the inhibition is more potent in the brain, then the voluntary constrictor signals to the external sphincter, urination will occur. So see, the higher center always controls the external sphincter also. Okay, so if the inhibition is more potent, that is, this external sphincter is inhibited, isn't it? If this inhibition is more potent in the brain than the voluntary constrictor signals, so there is generally, we can constrict the external sphincter. We can constrict the external sphincter. It is under voluntary control. Okay, whenever there is no proper environment to urinate, we voluntarily constrict the external sphincter. Okay, so that the urine cannot pass. But at certain time, what will happen? This inhibition, this constriction, that is the constrictor effect, it will be less than the inhibition of the external sphincter. That is, the brain will send the signal, isn't it? And if the urine volume is more than suppose 500-600 ml, so what will happen? The urine will flow out. Okay. If the inhibition is more potent in the brain than the voluntary constrictor signals to the external sphincter, urination will occur. If not, urination will not occur until the bladder fills still further and the micturition reflex becomes more powerful. So see, this micturition, it is controlled both by the micturition reflex and the external sphincter. Okay, so external sphincter, it is under voluntary control. So there is the micturition reflex is a autonomic, it is a spinal cord reflex, isn't it? It is not under our control. So whenever the urine volume will increase to around 300 to 400 ml, there will be strong micturition reflex. Okay, and we'll feel an urge to urinate. But what happens if we don't have the proper environment? Then the brain will send signal to the external sphincter, external urethral sphincter, to constrict that you cannot open now. If you open, then what will happen? The urine will pass and there is no proper environment. Okay, so we can voluntarily constrict the external sphincter to control the urine. Okay, but when the environment is proper, then the brain will again send the signal that now the environment is proper, you can relax. So the external sphincter will relax and the urine can be voided. Okay, so this is how the whole micturition reflex, this is how micturition occurs. Now coming to the voluntary control of micturition, role of supraspinal centers. The micturition reflex is fundamentally a spinal reflex facilitated and inhibited by higher brain centers. I told you, although the micturition reflex is a spinal reflex, but it is facilitated and inhibited. That is, it can be inhibited and also it can be facilitated by the higher brain centers, that is the supraspinal centers, like defecation. Okay, it is also subjected to voluntary facilitation and inhibition. In infants and young children, micturition is purely a reflex action. See, in infants and young children, micturition is purely a reflex action. Okay, so whenever the urinary bladder is filled with urine, there is automatic micturition. But after an age, suppose 3, 4 years, okay, this micturition, that is the voluntary control gradually appears. Okay, the voluntary control is gradually acquired as a learned ability of the toilet training. Once voluntary control is acquired, the supraspinal control centers exert final control of micturition by the following means. How? The facilitation or inhibition of micturition by the brain. Okay, the micturition reflex can be inhibited or facilitated by centers in the brain. These centers include strong facilitative and inhibitory centers in the brainstem located mainly in the pons, the pontine micturition center. Okay, and several centers located in the cerebral cortex that are mainly inhibitory but can become excitatory. So there are centers in the pons, that is the pontine micturition center, and there are also centers in the cerebral cortex. Okay, the micturition reflex is the basic cause of micturition, but the higher centers normally exert final control of the micturition as follows. The higher centers keep the micturition reflex partially inhibited, except when micturition is desired. Okay, so the higher centers will keep the micturition reflex inhibited, partially inhibited, except when micturition is desired. The higher centers can prevent micturition even if the micturition reflex occurs by tonic contraction of the external bladder sphincter. I told you there will be contraction of the external sphincter until a convenient time presents itself. Okay, whenever a convenient time will appear when the bladder can be emptied, then what will happen? That tonic contraction of the external bladder will be relaxed. Then the external sphincter can relax and the urine can be voided. Okay, when it is time to urinate, the cortical centers can facilitate the sacral micturition centers to help initiate a micturition reflex and at the same time inhibit the external sphincter so that urination can occur. Now, supraspinal control centers which control the micturition reflex include the pontine micturition center and suprapontine centers. So, pontine micturition center, neurons from PMC descend in the reticulospinal tract and exert control over the sacral micturition center and thoracolumbar sympathetics. Function of PMC are coordination of detrusor contraction and sphincter relaxation, which is important for proper micturition, and to relay inputs from the suprapontine center, that is above the pons. Okay, so they will also relay the inputs from the centers which are above the pons, that is from the cerebral cortex. Suprapontine centers which relay their influence on the sacral micturition center through the PMC are the cerebral cortex. The cortical detrusor motor area is located in the medial frontal lobe. Then the basal ganglion inhibits the sacral micturition center and thereby the detrusor activity. Therefore, in Parkinson's disease, there may be poor detrusor function because the basal ganglion is affected by the Parkinson's disease. Okay. Then the limbic system excites the sacral micturition center. It forms the anatomical basis for the effect of emotions on voiding. Then what is the role of perineal and abdominal muscles in micturition? Perineal and abdominal muscles has got role in voluntary micturition as they aid the emptying of bladder but are not essential component. You just remember they are not essential component of micturition process. Without the help of perineal and abdominal muscles also micturition can be done. Okay. So voluntary urination is usually initiated in the following way. So only during voluntary urination, okay, we have the role of the perineal and abdominal muscles. How it happens? First, a person voluntarily contracts his or her abdominal muscles, which increases the pressure in the bladder and allows extra urine to enter the bladder neck and posterior urethra under pressure, thus stretching their walls. This action stimulates the stretch receptors, which excites the micturition reflex and simultaneously inhibits the external urethral sphincter. This initiates micturition. So this is how voluntary micturition occurs. Now coming to some abnormalities of micturition. At first, atonic bladder. What is atonic bladder? It is caused by destruction of sensory nerve fibers. So you remember the pelvic nerves. Okay, so they carry they serve both the sensory and the motor nerve supply. Okay, so if there is destruction of the sensory nerve fibers, what will happen? Micturition reflex contractions cannot occur. Since the sensory nerve fibers carry the stretch the sensation of stretching of the urinary bladder, if these are destroyed, then what will happen? The micturition reflex contractions cannot occur. Okay. Micturition reflex contractions cannot occur if the sensory nerve fibers from the bladder to the spinal cord are destroyed. When this happens, a person loses bladder control despite intact efferent fibers. Efferent fibers, that is motor fibers, are okay. Okay. Despite intact efferent fibers from this from the cord to the bladder and despite intact neurogenic connections within the brain, all are okay. But what is happening here? Only the sensory nerve fibers, okay, which carry the sensation from the bladder to the sacral micturition center, these are destroyed, and hence the micturition reflex contractions cannot occur. Okay. Instead of emptying periodically, the bladder fills to capacity and overflows a few drops at a time through the urethra. So there is no periodic emptying, but what happens? The urinary bladder will keep on filling, okay, until it can accommodate the urine. Okay, and after the whole bladder is filled, what will happen? There will be overflowing of the urine. Okay, few drops, there will be overflowing of the urine automatically. Okay, so this occurrence is called overflow incontinence. This is overflow incontinence. What are the common causes of atonic bladder? A common cause of atonic bladder is crush injury to the sacral region of the spinal cord. Okay, then certain diseases like syphilis, Tabes dorsalis, there is tertiary syphilis. Okay, Tabes dorsalis can also cause atonic bladder. So these are the causes of atonic bladder: crush injury to the sacral region of the spinal cord, then Tabes dorsalis. Coming to the automatic bladder. If the spinal cord is damaged, so automatic bladder generally occurs during spinal shock, during spinal cord injury. Okay, automatic bladder. So if the spinal cord is damaged above the sacral region, but the sacral cord segments are still intact, typical micturition reflexes can still occur. Okay, what is happening? The damage to the spinal cord is above the sacral region. Okay, so the sacral region, there is the sacral micturition center is intact. Okay, so the typical micturition reflexes will occur. However, they are no longer controlled by the brain. So here what happens? The supraspinal control is affected. Okay, so they are no longer controlled by the brain. During the first few days to several weeks after the damage to the cord has occurred, the micturition reflexes are suppressed because of the state of spinal shock. Initially few days there is spinal shock, and as a result the micturition reflexes are suppressed. But after that the micturition reflexes start appearing. Okay. So, however, if the bladder is emptied periodically by catheterization to prevent bladder injury caused by overstretching of the bladder, the excitability of the micturition reflex gradually increases until typical micturition reflexes return. Then periodic but unannounced bladder emptying occurs. So here what happens? The supraspinal control, that is the control by the higher center, is not there. Hence, there will be periodic emptying of the bladder, but this will be unannounced. Okay, automatically after the urinary bladder is filled to around 400 ml, there will be automatic voiding of the urine. Okay, so there is no voluntary control. Some patients can still control urination in this condition by scratching their thighs, which sometimes elicits the micturition reflex. So this automatic bladder generally occurs during CVA. Okay, during CVA we get, there is stroke. After stroke, there is automatic bladder. Okay. After the initial spinal shocks stage recovers, then this automatic bladder, we can see the typical features of automatic bladder, not during the spinal shock stage. Okay. Then another is the uninhibited neurogenic bladder caused by lack of inhibitory signals from the brain. Another abnormality of micturition is the so-called uninhibited neurogenic bladder, which results in frequent and relatively uncontrolled micturition. This condition derives from partial damage in the spinal cord or the brainstem that interrupts most of the inhibitory signals. Therefore, facilitative impulses passing continually down the cord keep the sacral centers so excitable that even a small quantity of urine elicits an uncontrollable micturition reflex, thereby promoting frequent micturition. So here what happens? There is frequent urination. Okay, there is uncontrolled frequent urination in this uninhibited neurogenic bladder. Okay, so these are the important abnormalities regarding the urinary bladder. One is the atonic bladder and another is the automatic bladder. Okay, so we just go through this atonic bladder, automatic bladder. Okay, and the difference also may come, the difference between autonomic, that is the automatic, and the atonic bladder. Okay. Okay, thank you. This much.